Hey, everybody. I have a couple of things to say at the top of this hour. Oh, this is Take the Black, the only show on the internet where we talk about things like Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, the Star War, The Peripheral, Avatar, and other sci-fi fantasy movie TV stuff. This one day we will have a League of Imitators. Right now we stand alone. I am Dan Selcke, editor of winterscoming.net, and this is Daniel Roman, the other editor of winterscoming.net. And I'd like to first apologize, because yesterday we tried to get a show for you. We couldn't get a show for you because the internet be tripping, which is what the kids are saying these days. True. And I'm sorry that we couldn't get it to not trip. I'm really sorry. The internet is bad sometimes. Sometimes it does things you don't want to do it, but you can't predict how it works. And we just couldn't get it working. And we're sorry, but we're here now. And we're gonna have such a great time together. Daniel, hope we have such a great time together.
True. We always do have such a great time together. I was sad that I was sad to miss you guys out there yesterday, but I'm glad that we're here today and appreciate that you showed up to hear the very exciting news we have, which I guess because Richard let us know people were talking about this before we went live, we should probably just preface by saying The Winds of Winter is not done, if that's the update you're hoping for. I'm sorry, but not as sorry as George R.R. Martin. But there was some news on that front.
Big champ, if that was what you were looking for. Hello to our viewers on YouTube and Facebook. It's not quite that, but it's not bad. Hello, Hanan. Hello, Big Champ. Hello, Martha. Hello, Zach. Hello, everybody. Daniel, why don't you get into it? What is the Winds of Winter update that falls short of the book is coming out?
Yeah. So George R.R. Martin appeared on Stephen Colbert's Tuning Out the News, which I didn't know about this show.
I've never heard of this.
Me neither. Apparently, it is a show that I guess Stephen Colbert started where a cartoon host talks to a real person and either roasts them or roasts the news. So basically, George R.R. Martin was on there being roasted by the animated host, Dr. Ike Bloom. And he called James Patterson the prolific. Yeah, he is
the
voiced,
faker.
I don't remember.
The cheater, James Patterson. Okay, go on.
Ooh, shots fired. Yeah, James Patterson. Opinions differ. I don't love, don't hate. But yeah, so James Patterson, he's the number one best-selling writer in the world, because he puts out a ton of books. And this cartoon avatar called up James Patterson to have him give some tough love advice to George R.R. Martin.
Struggling writer, George R. Martin, yeah.
Yes, struggling writer, truly pathetic writer, George R.R. Martin, who's having trouble meeting deadlines. So it was a lot of fun. You can find it on YouTube if you haven't seen it. The Winds of Winter update that came out of it is that George basically said he has written 1,100 or 1,200 pages for The Winds of Winter. James Patterson asked, how much do you have done? Well, 1,100 or 1,200 pages, but still got another 400 or 500 to go before it's done. So that's the news. Still around 400, 500 pages to go in the Winds of Winter. And it's 1,100 or 1,200 pages. So
which is too much for a book, by the way.
Yes.
I don't know.
I was just going to ask your opinion on that.
A book that is that big. And if you did, it would need like an entire shelf of the bookstore just for itself, which they would give it because the book is that big.
Well, it's also important. So these are it's always important to keep in mind with page counts like this coming from an author. These are manuscript pages. It's not the same length as once it's printed. So yes, in the biz enough to know that it's not 1,200 pages of him writing the manuscript is not the same as 1,200 pages in a bound book.
Why? Because it gets edited, or is it just because he's like triple spacing or something, and then they're gonna get it compressed?
Yep, because manuscript format is double spaced, usually like 12-point font. So once they bring it to the printer,
Smart.
it gets single spaced, it gets formatted differently. With these big epic fantasies, a lot of times they'll lower the font just a little bit to make sure
Sure. Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah. To get more words
bindable, like you said.
per sentence.
Yeah, you saw that with the Wheel of Time. They did that because some of those books are huge, and like Sanderson is doing the same thing where his books are like 400,000 words. They're longer than a normal book, but they still bind it as one book in the
And you
US.
know what's not happening? Editing.
What?
Do you think anybody
None of
is
that
going to edit him at this point? Not a single person would dare take out anything that he loves.
I mean, he has an editor.
Clear.
The question is how much are they going to fight him on stuff, and that I don't know.
Nada.
But yeah, so that's what's up with the Winds of Winter. Nada. Do we
you
want to
think
hit any
the
other
Winds of Winter could
Yeah.
come out next year? Because he's been talking about it a lot
No.
more. No, just no. Probably no. He's talking
Well,
about it. It would
it's
just be
hard-
so nice for us, you know? It would be so nice for us to
Yes,
cover House
for
of the
us.
Dragon, have House of the Dragon gap year, but have Winds of the Winter happen, and then go back to House of the Dragon the next year. That would be
Yes.
so perfect for our
I'm gonna say a thing.
website. Mhm.
Yeah, I'm gonna say a thing that might get me hated, but I'm gonna do it. I think it's
Okay.
more likely the Winds of Winter will come out in 2025 than that.
Yeah.
That's my between seasons 2 and 3, or it'll come out in 2024, but it's definitely not coming next year because so he's got to write 400 and 500 more pages, and then it's got to go through like the production cycle for publishing and get printed and stuff.
Yeah, it's not right.
And so usually that's like a year or two lead time. Dance with Dragons, they turned around in, I think it was like 8 months. It was like an expedited publishing schedule because
Sure.
they had just been waiting for it for 6 years and knew it would sell like hotcakes. So they
Hotcakes.
could maybe do that. I'm sure they would do the same thing with Winds of Winter, but that would mean he'd have to have the book done by May in order to have
I'm
it out
sure they do
by
more.
Christmas,
Like
at
Dance with
least.
Dragons was like a big name book, but Game of Thrones wasn't even on when it came out. Like I'm sure that after everything, Penguin would just, we're not publishing anything except this year. See if we can do this in a few months. But it's not the point. He'll write it. 4 to 5
What is
left.
What is the point, Dan?
The point is that this man has long since ago just forgotten to pare down things, and I'm prepared for there to be a lot of chapters that don't really need to be there, but it'll happen when it happens. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go ahead and make it my New Year's resolution for the Winds of Winter to come out in 2023. I'll do that.
that is very thoughtful of you for the rest of us to make that your resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing I'm most curious about coming out of that is it gonna get split? That jokingly was James Patterson's suggestion. Split it into 3 or 4 books, and then you can put one out a year, and everyone's happy, which is what he would do. Yeah, but yeah, I'm curious because like in the UK they don't bind books that large either. Like Brandon Sanderson books are
That's
2
true.
books.
Because the UK is smaller and they can't fit that much book into that landmass, right?
That's definitely that is absolutely the reason. Yes.
Cool.
I think there are only so many physical print locations that can make books of that size. I think is more what that has to do with, and just standards. But yeah, so that's what's up with the Winds of Winter. Do we want to hit any other House of the Dragon news?
Yeah, sure.
There's been a couple of exciting things.
We got Matt Smith and Millie Alcock nominated for Best Supporting Actor and Actress for House of the Dragon at the Critics' Choice Awards, which is nice.
Yep.
But I do think it's crazy that Paddy Considine, playing King Viserys I Targaryen, wasn't nominated for Best Actor.
Crazy.
And Emma Darcy, honestly, I don't know what category they would have been nominated in. Probably actress, Best Actress. I could guess I might be able to understand that because they were only in half the season, but also that's another stuff. But mainly I'm mad about Paddy Considine because he gave a really good performance and I don't know why he couldn't have made it on that list.
Yeah. And
I
this
haven't
is
seen
his
it.
year, right? Like
It's his year.
Emma will have
Yeah.
other year, like Emma will have other years, probably with crazier material or as crazy. But this was Patty's year, like his one
Yeah, it
year
sucks.
on the
It's too bad.
show. I hope he better get the Emmy nom. I was sad about this because Patty Considine getting
Sure.
snubbed, but
Oh,
I'm
great.
hopeful for future
Yeah, I mean, the Critics'
award
Choice
things.
Awards, like, we're critics. We know how useless we are. So the good stuff is like the Emmys and a couple of maybe like a Golden Globe if you really want to go slumming. But hopefully he gets an Emmy nomination. And I'd be love to see Matt Smith and
Yeah.
Emma Darcy up there too. And and good for Millie Alcock because I wasn't sure if she would be on there, but cool to see her getting her flowers, as they say. But Emma Darcy did receive the IMDb's Breakout Star Meter Award, which is nice.
Yeah. Which I guess
I think it's like a physical
means,
award.
I think so too. And I think it means they were the most searched person for
Yes.
the most amount of months of 2022.
Dem Negronis, get people to click on. Yeah.
Dem Negronis. Millie Alcock was up there too. I think she was like the second or third on that list. But there's also I hesitate to say rumor. I don't know that it really is a rumor. I'm pretty sure we know this for a fact. That production on House of the Dragon season 2 is starting in March of 2023.
Yeah, it's early next year.
I think they're starting. Yeah, they're shooting in Spain. I think that starts in March. So yeah, that's happening. That's good news. We may not have the Winds of Winter, but at least there will be House of the Dragon.
No, one
2.
man can't write his imagination onto a page, but like several hundred electricians, production assistants, lighting rig operators, actors, directors, producers, location scouts, casting agents can come together and make this incredibly complex season of TV happen early next year.
Yes.
George R.R. Martin, though,
that
will take a little while.
That math checks out. Let me ask you, and this is going to be a speculation thing here, just for a sec, because Martha asked this, and I'm curious what your thoughts are. Martha says, "What do you think his problem has been? Inspiration?"
I think I have a pretty like certain answer for that, but we've talked about it before. Like he's just the kind of writer who he writes things, then he goes and revises things. He waits for inspiration to strike. He doesn't just like write to write. Unless he loves what he does, he doesn't write it down, which on one level I admire it. Honestly, on one level I do respect him as an artist. I do honestly respect that he wants quality. That's real and truly how I feel.
Yes.
The flip side, of course, is that it produces this eternal weight. And I think it can kind of make him prone to indulgence because like I have confidence that he publishes what he loves. I'm not sure he's thinking much about what other people might love all the time. So I think there are pros and cons to his process, but I respect it. I said this before, like he's taken forever. I do honestly think he spent the past 11 years writing after his fashion. I'm not sure like Patrick Rothfuss has written more than 3 sentences.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to bring up because Rothfuss has been pretty open about having like familial issues and depression and things that have kept him from writing. And Martin, he is writing, like you said, he's been writing. He is a perfectionist. Rothfuss has that too. They are very similar in this way. They've both talked about it in terms of revising things a million times to get it to be the perfect thing they want it to be.
The prose to sing.
And that is a huge difference. Yeah, getting the prose to sing. And that is a huge difference from someone like a James Patterson or Brandon Sanderson, who does like 5 edits on his book and then it's done and he sends it out and doesn't want to look at it again.
I really got to read a Brandon Sanderson thing to see what all of us is about. James Patterson, correct me if I'm wrong,
worth it.
Doesn't he just like put his name onto books that aren't written by him? It's like it's like Murder So Foul a James Patterson book by Quigley lately or something.
Yes. There's been a little bit of controversy surrounding that. So James Patterson, he does still write. It's not like he's not writing at all, but he puts out so many books, like enough books that, so when I worked at a bookstore, there was like James Patterson Tuesday, and it was a thing that happened every month where we could count on there being a new James Patterson book. So yes is the short answer to that. He uses a stable of co-authors who he kind of like grooms and trains to be up and coming authors, and he gets them to write books for him, but he oversees the process, and thus his name goes up in the very large letters on the books.
I mean, I don't begrudge him. It's a very different approach. Like he's a franchise,
yes,
and George R.R. Martin is an author. And he's an author too, but he's also a franchise.
Yeah,
I wonder if what he does is like said,
like,
I have an idea. What if a man killed a person? Like, I'm a co-author. Go ahead and write that idea.
I feel like you see that with Sanderson too. So like Sanderson will refer to himself in third person sometimes when he's talking about his business. Like, we're putting out a Brandon Sanderson book this month. George R.R. Martin doesn't do that. He very much gives off the vibe of being an old school person off in their cabin, just trying to make the really perfect piece of art.
To make art happen.
And he's at the end of his career, like really, like he's old. Yeah, like most of his career is behind him. So he's kind of trying to polish that perfect gem as the last large project of his life, is my impression on why it's taking so long.
Oh yeah, I understand.
But you're right. We've talked about that a lot.
I like to make fun. Making fun is fun. But at the end of the day, I do get it, and it's all good. Like, coming from Camilla, we should mention that why finish the book till the show is out and everyone is watching it when he can leave us all wanting for the actual canonical ending to make sure it has a proper audience. I honestly don't think that's it. I honestly don't. I just, after covering him for so long, I don't think it's how his brain works. He is on just like a different track. I don't think he even thinks about the show. It's my impression from having looked at him all these years. By the way, Camilla,
I think he would have loved to have gotten it out before,
he would have loved it.
He would have loved to have gotten it out before the show ended, and would probably be leading a much less stressful life.
Yeah, for a couple of years. By the way, Camilla Cervello, is going to the Game of Thrones official fan convention, which is going to happen tomorrow through Saturday and Sunday. This big official Game of Thrones fan convention where they're going to have Kit Harington, going to have Patty Considine, I think. Camilla, you probably know better than I do exactly who's going to be there. But very exciting. I'm sure there'll be some announcements. Probably, right? So yeah, very, very cool. And Camilla, thanks for covering that for us. I'm looking forward to pay attention to the WiC Twitter at WiCnet for all of the updates. And of course, the Winners Coming.net homepage for all kinds of, as they come in, info.
Yeah, that's exactly that. I guess that pretty much wraps up the Game of Thrones news.
Does it?
Right? Does it? I think it so. Pretty much does.
Yeah.
So onward to your other favorite topic.
I like it.
Avatar: The Way of Water is coming out next week, and the first impressions are rolling in. The film had its London world premiere on Tuesday of this week, which means finally it was a blue carpet, yes. And yeah, this means critics have seen it and they're pretty happy about it, which I feel like should come as a surprise to no one, but maybe I'm in the minority here of just being like, obviously Avatar is going to be great.
Can I poop on the party right now, or should I wait until we go through some of the Okay. I'm just going to say that when they have these big premieres and the critics go and they watch a new thing, like I remember the reactions for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I remember the reactions for Thor: Love and Thunder. And like, look, they were rhapsodic too. Like, no one goes to these premieres, comes out and says like, that was a crock of crap, because they know they're not going to come back. It just never happens. So I truly am looking forward to the movie. I'm going to see it. Probably not in 3D. I'll be honest about that. If my local theater
It's all
has
right. We
to,
all
I'll
make
do it. If not,
mistakes.
it's fine. Oh my God. Let's get into this. Fine. You know what? To spite you, I'm gonna watch it on an Apple Watch. That's what I'm gonna do. If I'm
Okay,
going
that's
through a
fine.
tunnel on a train. I'm just saying, I wouldn't just jump to the conclusion that these first newborn impressions are definitely an accurately representation of whether the movie is good or not.
Yeah,
But they
I
are
I
good.
think that is a very
Ooh.
fair outlook, because you're right. Like, no one ever comes out of the premieres and is like, "Man, that thing sucked." You
It'd be fun.
really don't
I'll do
see
it.
that.
Invite me.
um,
I don't care if I
but
loved it.
yeah,
I'll say it
so
sucked.
I yeah, that is fair. I do think I've been a little surprised by how many people have compared it to the first movie, being like it was better than the
Well,
first one. And
makes sense.
that's like a decade old. Like, I don't know. Sure. I guess I kind of just assumed it would be at least as good. Because if you spend, a decade making a sequel and it is not as good as the first one, what was it all for?
I mean, most sequels aren't as
But
good as the
so
first one, but James Cameron sequels are always better than the first one. So
Yeah. So we've got stuff from like Fandango's Eric Davis said Avatar The Way of Water is phenomenal. It's bigger, better, and more emotional than
phenomenal.
Avatar.
Or emotional.
Phenomenal. The film is visually breathtaking, visceral, and incredibly engrossing. The story, the
Engrossing.
spectacle, the spirituality, the beauty. This is movie making and storytelling at its absolute finest. Josh Horowitz, host of the Happy Sad
What'd he say?
Confused podcast, says James Cameron once again shows filmmakers how it's done.
How
I've
it's
said it
done.
1,000 times, never doubt him, which
Do
I
it.
agree with him. Don't doubt James Cameron. He's
No,
proved
I've
that's
never
folly.
doubted James Cameron.
That's true. You haven't. Um, Avatar, The Way of Water is how you do epic blockbustering, emotional,
Hard to
visceral.
do it.
That's 2 viscerals now, and as big
Twice,
as
one,
movies
2.
get.
Baby.
Yeah.
Biggest they get.
Let's see. What else have we got from Ian Sandwell at Digital Spy? Unsurprisingly, Avatar: The Way of Water is a visual masterpiece with rich use of 3D
Rich
and breathtaking
rich.
vistas. It does, here's our first critique. It does suffer from a thin story and too many characters to juggle. Yet James Cameron pulls it together for an extraordinary final act full of emotion and thrilling action. This one might be my favorite.
Honestly, when I was reading like the older like first impressions from like the Multiverse of Madness and Love and Thunder, you can tell they like want to say more bad things, but they just don't. And that reminds me of those the critiques for those that were like,
I could see that.
Oh my God, Doctor 2 is so good. It does have a problem with this, but mostly, wow. It kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah.
The story's kind of thin, which I mean is kind of a big thing for like anything.
Yeah.
But it doesn't pull together. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, I think so. All of the people commenting on the visuals and the visual masterpiece aspect of it, that to me is the no-brainer aspect of this, where it's like James Cameron has been pushing the technology that it's
Always.
like, if it's anything less than a visual masterpiece, I will be shocked. But yeah, I've also seen a lot of people talk up the story, so that is a big question mark. I'm curious how good the story is.
Should we cancel the guy who tweeted that?
No, let's not. I think that would be preemptive. We should use our compassion and better judgment here. Okay, last one. This one's my favorite from Matt Ryan at Uprocks. Avatar: The Way of Water. Yeah, never bet against James Cameron. Trying to spare hyperbole, but I've never seen anything like this from a technical visual standpoint. It's overwhelming. Maybe too overwhelming. Sometimes I'd miss plot points because I'm staring at a Pandora fish. Which,
he got something to say, but he doesn't want to say it. That's what I'm getting from that.
I think that's fun. I saw another one. I don't have it here, but it was like, James Cameron understands something few filmmakers do: how rad glowing things are. And those, I just think those sorts of comments of being distracted distracted by the scenery, I think are funny because they've obviously put a lot of
Honestly?
effort into the scenery.
Oh, yeah, like I said, I'd be shocked if it wasn't beautiful. The more you read those, the more they're starting to sound like backhanded compliments to me. Like, I missed plot points because I couldn't
Ooh.
stop looking at things. I don't know, man. Now I'm intrigued. I plan to see it though.
Yeah,
I do.
I
The story's a little thin.
cool.
I just missed things, but it was so beautiful. I don't know. That last one felt
Yeah.
like he had something to say, but he couldn't say it. I'm interested. I will see it. Nicole, by the way, predicts that people say it's good but not great, which I can definitely see. First reviews. And Jay Patel says, is the story going to see people and fighting bad humans? I assume it will be. Hope it's more. And Nicole sounds like LOTR. Good visual but thin story. Nicole, the Lord of the
Shots
Rings story.
fired, Nicole.
Oh, let me get into why that is the thickest story the past 100 years. Well, past 100 years. I like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Oh, or the show though.
Yeah.
I agree with that one. Yeah.
The show definitely. But yeah,
When
curious
people
about
say
Avatar.
Lord of the Rings, I still think the movies, and I have to remember that there's a show.
Yeah.
Probably isn't a great sign for the show.
Absolutely the same for me. I assumed Nicole was talking about the movies. But yeah, very curious about Avatar. It comes out next week, December 16th. I will be seeing it early before our next podcast. So I might have some thoughts on that for next week. Shall we move on? Into the drama section of today's show?
Yeah, we got some drama. This is a drama channel now. We're going to talk about will the Kardashians appear? You don't know, possibly. What's happening in the drama sphere? Who's dissing who is beefing with whom? And who is currently beefing are James Gunn, who has been named the king of DC.
Okay.
James Gunn and Peter Safran are now in charge of the DC cinematic universe. What's that? Co-kings. Yeah, they're co-kings.
Co-kings.
Which has ups and downs. And the news is that they're canceling, or at least that they're choosing not to go forward with the third Wonder Woman movie starring Gal Gadot. Daniel, can I embarrass you right now?
Please.
Did you spell canceled wrong, or is that an acceptable spelling with the 2 L's in some jurisdictions?
We've been going back and forth on this.
And we have, haven't we?
We have. So this is the British spelling for canceled. I believe, correct me out there, any UK watchers, if I'm wrong. British canceled has 2 L's. We decided to use that because we also do cancellation with 2 L's on the site, which is the British spelling. So we can't have American canceled and British cancellation. They both need either 2 L's or 1 L.
What do you think?
Or we
commenters? Should we spell it with 1 L or 2 L's?
Yes, let us know.
On spelling. But anyway, yeah. So they're not going forward with Wonder Woman 3, which was already announced.
Yeah.
So, and they're going to say just, nah, not really my bag. They do not want Henry Cavill to return as Superman. They basically want to just get rid of all the reportedly. Well, I mean, it's the Hollywood Reporter reportedly being, so they're pretty clutch.
Yeah.
They don't want Jason Momoa to play Aquaman anymore. They don't want anybody from the old regime still around. They do want him to play Lobo, though, who is a Superman villain. I remember from that old Superman cartoon back in the 90s.
Was he a Superman villain?
That's what he was in the cartoon. I think it's an anti-hero. All I know is that cartoon that was Batman the Animated Series, and they had an animated Superman thing that came along with it. Yeah. And Lobo, I remember him. He was this Momoa's a good fit, honestly. This kind of loud talking, brash, kind of Hell's Angel, but space bounty hunter thing going on. But they want to stop playing Aquaman. They just want to get rid of everything. Which is, I mean, that thing has been through so many flips and turns upside down that he's the AU at this point. It might be what I do. I mean, just how many times can you reboot a cinematic universe before people just write it off? Will they ever? Actually, I'm fine with it. I just kind of look at it and just think it's kind of like pity at this point. Like, oh, it's being turned over again.
Yeah.
God bless. Hope it works this time. Have a good time, dudes.
Yeah, I mean, I feel a little bad for, it's a lot of shakeups. Wonder Woman 3, Patty Jenkins had basically reportedly turned in her screen treatment for the movie. And the Warner execs, along with Gunn and Peter Safran, kind of came back and were like, this doesn't really fit into the vision we have for where the DCEU is
We
going.
got a vision.
So they have a vision. They are supposed to present their vision in a presentation to David Zaslav next week. Apparently they've been like on a retreat in the southwestern United States, just hiding away, planning what DC will look like.
Hotboxing in a lean-to in Arizona.
Yes. So Black Adam is most likely not getting a sequel, is one of the things being reported. The studio, one, because it hasn't broken even. I don't believe it's made a profit yet. So they're kind of looking at it and thinking it probably won't make much of a profit. And also, I guess, Dwayne Johnson's touting Henry Cavill's return and kind of making waves during the promotional tour didn't really endear him to Warner Brothers. At least that's what the Hollywood Reporter is saying. So it is not looking likely that Black Adam is going to get a sequel, and Cavill's return is a big question. They apparently, Man of Steel 2 was a thing that was being actively developed, but since Gunn and Safran have taken over, is maybe being pulled back, maybe getting scrapped. So yeah, a whole lot of question marks. We should have a better idea of what's going on, I hope, next week after this presentation.
With some spies,
we're kind of in a waiting game.
Leak it, yeah. We'll talk to our sources over at Warner Brothers Discovery. I happen to know
That's
Tiffany
right.
Zaslev, and we can see if we get anything from inside. But
So
do you have like a feeling about it, or are you just with me, where it's like kind of like watching the world's longest low-speed car crash and hoping they make it out of that one okay?
It's absolutely that. So I like DC Comics. I've always been more of a Marvel person. So I'm not particularly attached to what happens. Like, Batman is my favorite of the DC heroes, and Batman is the one character that's safe, because Matt Reeves did such a good job with the Batman. That was basically like the last big hit that DC has had. So that is, for now, remaining untouched. They're still letting him do his spin-offs for HBO Max. Right. He's still making the Batman 2. I feel it's more like the premise, honestly, that makes me a little like, I don't even want to say sad. That feels disingenuous. Like, because I don't really care about 95% of these movies. Like, I saw Black Adam, and it was a decidedly okay movie. I did. And there were parts where it was fun. There were parts where I tuned out. I thought the plot, speaking of plots and movies, had surprisingly more legs than I expected it to, but it also was, it was better than I expected. But the best part was the post-credits scene where Henry Cavill showed up. And yes, Nicole, Henry Cavill left The Witcher to play Superman, presumably.
No.
And now
I don't
presumably
think that's true. I mean, that was a fun line people were saying off because he left at the same time as it was announced he's coming back Superman. But I mean, clearly he didn't leave for any plan they had, because they don't have one. I mean, at the end of the day, no one knows why he left. Not really. Our best guess is super nerd Henry Cavill was kind of tired of how the Witcher folk were not doing right by the story and the character he loves. Although, honestly, I bet there's probably a lot of, again, this is the problem with hiring celebrities for your role. What if he was just like, fourth season of spending like 6 months in the wilderness in a white wig rolling over the place? Like, you can do that when you're that big. Like, people don't want
You
to be tied down. What's his face on Game of Thrones? Remember who played the Hound's mentor, Ian McShane. Um,
Yes.
I remember him having interviews being like, "Oh yeah, they wanted me on there," but I'm like, I don't want to go on there for like a whole season. Like, I'll do it if I don't have to talk
Yes.
that much. Like, that's a thing. I honestly wonder if it's like a really boring reason, but no one knows. It's probably he didn't like the direction of the
Yeah.
story, but I'm willing to bet we'll know more when season 3 comes out next year, I guess. But speaking of The
Yeah.
Witcher, and he certainly left quite a thunderclap in his wake.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, he did. So yeah, one of the bigger reports for The Witcher, obviously, we don't know why Henry Cavill left. There were, I don't even want to say just rumors. There were insider reports too that there was conflict behind the scenes with the direction of the show. And I understand for people who haven't read the books, you might not really get why, but the show has deviated just tremendously from that. And apparently Henry Cavill was the book super fan on staff. But anyway, all that aside, the drama really started with this when a former writer, Beau DeMaio, who used to work on The Witcher, wrote the Striga episode of The Witcher. He is now putting together, it was a nice one, putting together the writer's room for X-Men 97. And he basically said, the rule is you have to be a fan of the X-Men to work on my show, because I was on The Witcher and there were people who actively disliked the books and games and the writer's room. It's bad for morale, blah, blah, blah.
Messy.
And that is what really started
messy
the whole
behavior.
shitstorm with The Witcher. That is when it got messy. And no one from The Witcher has responded, but now that the floodgates are opening and The Witcher showrunner has responded to that, as well as people on the writing staff, script writing coordinator who says it's a whole mess of lies and accuses that writer of making up a bullshit story to cover up that they got fired for being an asshole. So it's getting juicy on the continents. So I'll just read through some of these quotes.
Go nuts.
So the first ones come from Lauren Hissrich, who is the showrunner of The Witcher, who I think needs to be commended for the sheer amount of vitriol she has had to deal with. I think she's handled very, very gracefully. Even though she does kick the hornet's nest a little, because she answers people on social media a lot when she could also just not answer.
You got to understand, audience, like when you involving a group of nerds, and The Witcher fans, online nerds, as we know, are very prone sometimes to strong opinions. And I mean, we see this kind of thing all over the place in internet drama land.
Yes.
When a writer says like they're not real fans and I was there, like that is like giving the kind of angry Twitter folk a license. It's hunting season and the game is The Witcher writers. Like, I have no doubt those people have been flooded into their mentions on Twitter.
Oh yeah,
with comparisons to you, like you're ruining the show, you're a stain on the world, you're the worst thing that happened to television since the Kardashians. I got him in there. Of course, you're Hitler. Done. Like, that'll always come up. And just people they don't really think, and they just avalanche on it. It happens all the time, especially on Twitter, even before Elon took over. And so some of the responses have been heated, but honestly, it's hard not to get heated when you're being called the Joseph Stalin of television writers.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky thing because the response that these writers have had to deal with, attacking people who write things for television like they are enemies of the state and evildoers is just a weird and it's a weird cultural phenomenon that we've come to that point where that is so easily able to be done. And yeah, I mean, it's fun, but it's also maybe not the most societally healthy thing in the world. It also kind of clouds the argument a little bit, because I do think I think there are reasons to be critical of The Witcher, personally. But at this point, like you said this earlier this week, that you kind of fall almost on the side of the writers on the show now, because at this point they've just been dragged so much that it's like kicking a dog that's fallen over. Like
I had Game of Thrones season 8 flashbacks. Right. Is what I had.
Yeah, and I think that's fair, and I think that's kind of the tipping point they're at right now, especially with the spinoff coming later this month, and a big question about how it will be received. But so what Lauren Hissrich said in response to there are people in the writer's room who didn't love The Witcher, blah, blah, blah. She said, I think if you watch any interview I've ever done, including those with The Witcher author Andrzej Sapkowski, you'll see that I am quite a fan of the books and the games. Thank you. Hissrich wrote, do you believe that when one person states something as a fact, that it's therefore fact? This particular thing is not a fact. I love the books. I'm shit at the games, but that's me. It's not the games. She's also aware of the fan petition, which we didn't really know before. Someone basically said there are 300,000 people almost who are upset and think you should be fired. And again, she responded very gracefully. I didn't need to respond at all. But yeah, so then there's this other writer, Matthew D'Ambrosio. He's actually, I believe, the script coordinator on the series. He's the one who said Beau DeMaio was lying to cover up the fact that he was fired for being an asshole, that he'd stirred up a bullshit narrative that has tainted The Witcher. He also characterized DeMaio's assertions as a whole mess of lies from an ex-writer of the show. Said, I played the games before I read the books, and then I got the opportunity of a lifetime to work on the sort of show I've always wanted to be on. And guess what? It's still a dream job. So yeah, drama on the continent.
It's drama, baby. It's good.
That's what's up. What's up.
It's exactly the same thing that happens in like Bachelor World or whatever, like The Bachelor World. It's all the same. And it'll die down. It's fun. But we're just gonna suck some life out of it while it's here, and hope you enjoy it as much as we do. Yeah. Well, shall we move on into the portion I think
where
we can. Yeah.
I had a good philosophical time, about all the things we're all watching.
I was enjoying that. I was laughing my ass off.
It's fun to cover the juicy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I heard you say script coordinator, whatever that does. So I believe that's like the lore person who checks all the stuff to make sure it is a fun job. I assume, I haven't done it, but that's my understanding of what that is making sure the consistencies are all there across the different scripts. So I have no doubt that person, this is the funny thing about this though, that person, Matthew D'Ambrosio, is probably not, if you assume Beau DeMaio wasn't lying, which personally I don't think he was, because I've watched The Witcher, and it's obvious that the source material is not first and foremost.
I'm betting that there's a space in between what the one guy's saying and the other guy's saying, that where the truth is, and we're never probably going to know.
I agree. Probably not. Maybe it's better off that way.
Sure.
But yeah, so Dan, and all of you out there, what are you watching?
All right. I'm watching 1899, that spooky kind of period piece about a haunted, a ship, a cruise line full of mysterious passengers. It's like Agatha Christie meets The Matrix meets Titanic.
Lost? Can we just say Lost?
We can say Lost.
Okay,
yeah.
Titanic.
It's fun. It's very grim. It's very dour. I'm watching The White Lotus at the same time.
Okay.
And The
Not
White
grim
Lotus
or dour.
it's kind of like it's very grim. It is about the characters, and 1899 is just sort of it's about the mystery. It's about the mood, and it's cool. I don't really care about the
Okay.
characters that much, but
Yeah.
the guy who makes the guy behind Dark is very much into the spookiness and the mood and whatever big driving philosophical thing is going to drive at. I'm interested. I'm being pulled along mostly by
Cool.
the dedication to it. White Lotus has been great. I agree with that, Nicole. I'm loving it. White Lotus is a lot of fun. Can't beat those messy rich folk going into others' throats. And again, Jennifer Coolidge voice. And having a good time. Most people watching. Oh, and Martha's looking forward to seeing the series Kindred. Does that come out today?
No, it's next Tuesday, I believe. The 13th.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one too, Martha. I'm looking forward to that. 1899, I haven't tried yet. I had a hard time with Dark. Just I guess relating to the characters. Like I didn't give it the full chance to be honest. I need to give it another chance.
Sure.
But it's cool to hear that you've been enjoying 1899, that you've been liking it so much.
I've been liking it.
Cool.
It's a bit of a different watch, but I've been liking it. I'm loving the White Lotus. The White Lotus is so much fun. It's very juicy. I'm looking forward to the finale. Finale's next Sunday. Who's gonna die? People who have watched it. Who do you think will die in the White Lotus finale? Because we know 2 people die. The whole gimmick of that show is like it starts at the very end, and you hear like, oh, it's one of the guests died, and then it goes all the way back to the beginning. And
I see.
I think the entire time, like, oh, who is it? Is it Aubrey Plaza? Is it Jennifer Coolidge? Is it Theo James? Is it the other guy?
Better not be
that one.
Better not be Jennifer Coolidge. We riot.
Jennifer Coolidge. Okay, go on. Well, what do you want?
Well, Nicole says she started Willow and the first 2 episodes were okay, but the third was terrible and she's out. Nicole, why did you hate the third so much? I started Willow this week so that I could review it on the site, and I am enjoying it. I feel like Willow is kind of the opposite of the Rings of Power, where it is very, very obvious that like this is not a show. Lucasfilm was not like, we need a moneymaker, let's bring back Willow. Like this is very obviously a passion project for people who really care about Willow as a property. And it feels like it's coming from the right place in that respect. Like it's a family-friendly show. It but somehow manages that without talking down to the audience, which I always appreciate.
That's nice.
Like you could watch it with teens, you could watch it with slightly younger kids, the same as you would with the movie Willow, which I also watched this week.
Is it good? I never seen it.
It is good. Yeah, I think so. Val Kilmer is hilarious. I didn't realize how funny he was in that movie. But he's totally the comedic relief of the movie and he kills it. But yeah, so Willow, overall, if you want a kind of a fun, accessible fantasy show that's got like the trappings, but you don't need to necessarily learn an encyclopedia of lore or worry about incestuous princesses and princes or anything like that, Willow's, it's good for that.
Sweet. By the way, Jay Patel says that 1899 has a very satisfying payoff and an unexpected ending. I am in the middle of it, Jay, so I'm looking forward to, because these kinds of shows are all about like the puzzle falling into place and the ending, right? Yeah. So I'm glad it has a good one. So I'm looking forward to that. Go on, Daniel. What else you watching? I believe someone asked about The Peripheral.
Yes.
Zach
so I
about
did.
The Peripheral.
Zach, I loved the ending of The Peripheral. It's funny that you say I really liked it, although the ending was a bit confusing. The ending was a little bit confusing for sure. If you find my review on winteriscoming.net, I do explain the ending a little bit, because it did feel a little bit like they shoved in a few different ideas that I wish they'd maybe set up a little bit more leading up to that. But overall, I liked it a lot. I don't know if it was my favorite sci-fi show of the year, but it's definitely in my top 5 for the year. I liked it more than Westworld season 4. Well, I mean, we'll put it at least at that level.
I I'm taking
Yeah, I
falls down
think-
the stairs. I like more what's season 4. Do you agree that this? Not really, but I thought it was a fun line. Do you agree with the commenters that
was
the
a
ending
good one.
to that? Do you agree that the ending to the Peripheral was confusing? Because a couple of commenters think it was.
Yes. I this is gonna sound bad. I was not super confused, but that's coming from a place of I'm watching these episodes multiple times and reviewing them.
Sure.
And making very sure I understand what's going on so I can explain it to other people. But I watched it with my wife, and immediately we got into a conversation about what just happened. So yes, I do think the Peripheral's ending is probably going to be known as a slightly confusing one. Again, there's an element of like one timeline ended, but they introduced another timeline, and it's a cool idea, but they didn't really take the time to seed it very well leading up to it. For me, the place where the Peripheral shines is in like the quiet moments and the performances of the actors. Like the family dialogue between Flynn, who's Chloe Grace Moretz, and her brother Burton, who's played by Jack Rayner. Their like sibling relationship is one of the most believable I've seen in anything, at least this year, but in general recently. So it really, really nails stuff like that, and like the dialogue between characters. Yeah, I think there's a lot to like about the Peripheral. The overall story, I think the people saying it's confusing, I think that's fair. This is made by the same people who made Westworld, and you can tell at times.
And now that Westworld's done, now that they sunk it on purpose because Jeff asked them to, they can focus on their Amazon shows, like The Peripheral and Fallout.
Yeah.
By the way,
I am curious if it's going to get a second season. We don't know if it will.
I wonder if The Peripheral will show up next week during our show, where we're hoping, Richard willing, where we will be ranking our favorite shows of 2022. That should be a good one. I'm looking forward to that.
That'll be fun. I can't wait.
That'll be next week. Do you have anything else you're watching? Should we move on to the final segment?
The only other thing I am watching, which I should mention because it's a new thing, is Wednesday.
How is it? How are you liking it?
I've been enjoying it a lot. It's definitely another one of those where it's like I'm not taking it super serious. It's not that kind of show where, you bring the rigor to watch Wednesday. It's like, it's meant to be a fun show. It's kind of geared toward a teenage audience a little bit because Wednesday's going to this spooky boarding school,
if you will.
It is definitely YA, but I think if you enjoyed the Tim Burton Addams Family movies, this feels like it really honors the. Who made them?
Not Tim Burton. A guy who is not Tim Burton. He's not involved in those at all. You would think he was.
Really?
He was not.
Really?
Yeah. Completely different guy. Tim Burton's not involved in the movies in the 90s at all. Zero. I was surprised too.
Is that true? Yeah. Is that a true thing you just said?
That's 100% true. It's 100% true.
All right.
Look it up,
all right.
I think
intrigued.
They were Barry
I'm trying to right now. I can't do it. What I will say. Barry Sonnenfeld.
Barry Sonnenfeld. But
okay.
A common mistake, and I want to get it out of there.
I appreciate that. Because I always assumed it was him. Yeah, Barry Sonnenfeld. There you go. It's just like Nightmare Before Christmas, which is labeled as Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas, even though
at least he was involved in that one. Like, he had all the ideas. He wasn't involved in the Addams Family at all. Nightmare Before Christmas is his baby. He just didn't know how to do stop motion.
Okay, so take Tim Burton out of the equation. The 90s Addams Family movies, if you enjoyed those, Wednesday feels like it nods to them in really fun ways. Christina Ricci is in Wednesday. She played Wednesday in the Addams Family movies. It's a fun show. Enjoying it a lot. I'm only a few episodes in, so I need to finish. Spooky Hogwarts is accurate, Zach. Yes.
And Christian asked about
accurate.
About Flanagan and Macy going to Amazon to possibly make Dark Tower. I will say really, really fast before we get to the end, there's a report going around today that Mike Flanagan, the guy who makes the Haunting series on Netflix, is going to make Dark Tower for Amazon. I don't think that's what the news actually said. It said like he has the rights and he could make it, but I don't know if it's not like greenlit yet.
No.
So
no, Dark
I was
Tower
kind of confused because like everyone was talking today about like they're making the Dark Tower, and I'm like, no, they're not. Like it's like he'd like to.
Yeah,
I'd
Flanagan
like
has
to
been
too.
talking.
I don't know.
Yeah, Flanagan has really been putting his name out there as I want to adapt the Dark Tower. I don't know about the rights thing. I haven't read the article, but I do know that it's not like you said, it's not greenlit. There is not a Dark Tower show currently being made at Amazon.
But all the headlines
whether it
were
could go
running
that
with it.
way. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up happening, though, especially if Flanagan or Amazon has rights to it. But
post Rings of Power, we'll see how much appetite there is over at Amazon for big, expensive fantasy dramas.
I feel like the bubble's bursting. I feel like it's bursting, Dan. This was the year of big, expensive fantasy shows, and I do think the wave is cresting a little bit because some studios have maybe not recouped their monies as much as they wish they did.
Bubbles bursting, wave is cresting, last call at the bar, party's ending, put the last song in the jukebox. You gotta go home, you can't go home, you can't stay here, that kind of thing. Anyway, should we do the WiC News Lightning Round and wrap this puppy up? Mixed metaphor?
Yeah, why don't we do that? Wait, stall for me. Just 2 seconds. I'm looking at the Dark Tower, Dan.
Okay. I'll admit, I didn't like do a deep dive, but I looked at the interview and it said like he has a great idea for it, but it didn't like say we're gonna do it, which is the impression that I was getting from a lot of the headlines. Thank you, Nicole. I was thinking about I was thinking about the metaphors while Daniel was talking. And yeah, I don't think it's happening yet.
Okay.
You know the answer?
Yes. So the answer is that they have written a pilot and an outline for how they would do the Dark Tower. And that they do it. I don't see Flanagan and Macy, who carved the rights to the Dark Tower out of their Netflix and Amazon Studios overall deal. So it seems like they may have the rights to do it. Yeah, so it seems like they may have the right to adapt it. They might have gotten that right from Stephen King because they have made King movies before, like Dr. Sleep and Gerald's Game.
It's one thing to have the rights and another and to have like an outline, like we want to do this. Another thing to say like, hey, Jeff, will you give us $200 million to put Stephen King's metatextual epic Western meet fantasy on the screen? And that is a crucial step that just hasn't happened so far as I can tell yet.
Yeah, so basically, they've written a pilot for it. They have an idea of how it would go, like Christian said, for like 5 seasons and 2 movies. So that's the grand plan for the Dark Tower. They don't have a studio making it yet. It is what it looks like to me, looking at this article right now. But that could change. We'll see. Dark Tower has had a not an easy run of getting to the screen in a faithful
FX
form.
was going to make it for a while and then they dumped it. So just until more, I'm going to just not go hog wild on it quite yet.
Yeah.
Let's do this lightning round thing because we're going long.
Let's do it.
There's
My bad.
Tacos to eat. Okay. No, it's all good.
Oh, hell yeah. We can't hold up taco night. All right. I'm going to ask you first. Are you ready? And Richard, are you ready with the buzzer?
I'm not ready.
We'll see. Ready. There it is. All right. So Bong Joon-ho will direct Robert Pattinson in a new sci-fi film called Mickey 17.
This is actually cool. I mean, I love Bong Joon-ho. You know, Parasite, Snowpiercer. He's just exploded as like the cool new sci-fi guy. I'll watch this. Robert Pattinson having a great time too as the Batman coming back from out of the wilderness after he was in Twilight. I will totally watch that. Love it. Give it to me. Want it now. I'll see it. All right. Daniel, Kate Dickey who played Lysa Arryn in Game of Thrones, the adult breastfeeder, has joined the cast of Loki season 2 as a villain. You into that?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, Kate Dickey's great. She's great at being unnerving, villainous characters. Yeah, she was also in The Witch, and she was an uncomfortable parent in that too. I'm sure she'll be great. I love that they got her for Loki. Can't wait to see her in it.
Yeah, cool. High quality. We are being
so
excellent.
Speaking of Game of Thrones alumni who are now going to be in other things, a trailer was just released for Transformers Rise of the Beasts, the 53rd Transformers movie that apparently they're still making. Peter Dinklage is going to voice the villain Scourge in the movie. Are you going to go see it now to see Peter Dinklage?
No. I hope Peter Dinklage enjoys the check they cut him. That's about it. You know, I'm being glib. Maybe he's really passionate about it. It feels like a paycheck move to me. The movies are like, I'm sure they're okay. I saw the first one. I think that was about it. That was years ago. If you like Transformers, I hope you enjoy it. Peter Dinklage, Scourge.
Nice. Well played.
That was too mean. Oh, well. This is a really interesting one. Reportedly, Marvel, after Phase 4 has been a bit hit and miss, is reorienting to focus on quality over quantity for the next 2 phases, phases 5 and 6, of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Thank the heavens. This is my immediate gut reaction to that, because I do think the quality strained a little bit in Phase 4 more than any previous phase. So that's good. It does make me a little nervous because it really does feel like Marvel just kind of had a loose plan for where to go after the Infinity Saga, and they're kind of patchwork fixing it as they go along. But I hope it turns out well.
Got a little hubristic there for a second.
A little bit. They were like, we can make all the things, and our peon fans will watch them.
And you monkeys will dance for us, won't you? You did it before. Okay, go on.
Yes, we will. You and Mickey Mouse. Okay, so speaking of changes that may be happening, HBO Max is reportedly considering rebranding as just Max. What's the deal with that, Dan?
Just Max. I like it. I mean, because they're going to combine it with Discovery Plus, which has all these kind of like reality shows, and they don't think that the HBO brand attached to like, you know, like House Hunters, teeny houses in Costa Rica is like kind of quality enough. So they're just going to call it like Max, just Max. I think it's kind of dorky and bold and fun. I like it. Sure, go ahead. Let's call it Max.
Yeah, we've been saying it so much since we read that story that I feel like, yeah, it's gonna stick. It'll be fine. I do think it's hilarious that it's like, let's cover the prestige of our brand and change the name.
Yeah, let's lower it. All right, Daniel, Mark Strong will play the Emperor of the Damn Universe in the Dune prequel HBO Max or just Max series, Dune: The Sisterhood.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's cool. Mark Strong, I can't think of what I've seen him in recently off the top of my head, but he's great. He's got a good imposing aspect. Yeah. I think he'll be solid as the Emperor of the Damn Universe. And Dune: The Sisterhood is getting a pretty stacked cast, so I'm very curious to see how it turns out.
On Max, coming to Max this winter.
Right. Coming to Max. Max out your entertainment with Max. All right. So Avatar, this is not new news, but it's being talked about recently.
I'd never heard it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is a long-standing feud, but one of the animators for Avatar: The Last Airbender reflected recently with the coming out of Avatar: The Way of Water by James Cameron, reflected on how the cartoon had to change its name from Avatar to Avatar: The Last Airbender, adding The Last Airbender because James Cameron had the rights to Avatar years before the movie came out.
The Last Airbender came out in like 2008, and Avatar came out, I think, after, and they still had to change the name. So I call nonsense on that. because The Last Airbender better than Avatar. At least like the show versus the movie. I'd rather see the show. So I think to be awarded
That's
everything,
hard.
and they changed it to Blue People Moon, which are called Avatar.
No. Yeah, Cameron has he talked about this recently. He has drawings from when he was like 17 of some of the concept art for Avatar. So this has been his passion
the
project,
dorks who
like,
made
for
The
his
Last
life.
Airbender were thinking about doing an animated show loosely inspired by East Asian culture since they were kids too. So what, you're gonna look at
Well, they should
look,
have
I drew this blue guy when I
filed-
was 7 in my notebook in elementary school, so I got a copyright on it. Oh, go to hell.
They
James.
should have filed copyright. They should have trademarked it. All right. Oh wait, you read this one.
Yes.
It's our last one.
It's the last one. Daniel, William Gibson's book,
Yes.
Neuromancer, a highly influential book, is being developed as a show for Apple TV Plus.
Yeah, good news for the Peripheral fans. If you enjoyed that is also based on a William Gibson book. Neuromancer is like the William Gibson book. If you're going to read just one of his books, that's the one you should read. Extremely influential, one of the original cyberpunk books in the genre. And yeah, Apple TV Plus is making it, and I hope it's good.
Me too. All right, we're running a little long, so we're going to wrap this up. Thanks for joining us today. Sorry we were late. Next week we will be at our normal time, Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on the Winners Coming YouTube page, my Facebook page. We're hopefully going to do our year-end wrap-up, which I'm looking forward to quite a bit.
Yes.
We're also in podcast form, wherever they're available, be it iTunes, Google Play, elsewhere. This has been Take the Black. We're back next week. Thanks for watching. And I once drew a boat in the margin of my 4th grade notebook, so I guess I get royalties for Titanic.